Greetings, Internet! Welcome to episode number 206 of the Comic Watchers Show. I'm Matt, he's Chad, and we are, as ever, the Comic Watchers. So this week, Chad, how you be? Other than cold here in upstate New York.
Yes, cold. But other than that, doing well.
Nice. Well, so this week we've got Tony Fleecs back on the show after a 2-year absence. Hello, Tony.
Triumphant return.
And and Dave Wachter is making his inaugural appearance on the show, but not his first appearance in Chad's heart.
That's right.
Or my portfolio.
Or his portfolio. That's right. So, guys, we're here today to talk about a little series you got coming up from Boom called The Uncanny Valley. What can you tell us about it? What can you tell us about yourselves and your crazy comics journey that brought you to this point?
Dave, you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is our story, right, Tony? This is like
very heartfelt.
Like our road show.
How we met. Yeah, I mean, it's going on close to 19, 20 years when Tony and I first met. We were both on the Bendis board, I think, and we both started making comics at about the same time.
Okay.
I remember we were at Wizard World Chicago, like 2005 or 2006. 2005, Tony had an ash can of bio comics, and I had a print-on-demand book that I was doing, and we were both starting out, and that's when we met. We've worked together a couple of times on a couple of small things. And then about a decade ago, again in Chicago at C2E2, we were rooming together there, and Tony told me about an idea he had for a book, and I thought that sounded pretty cool. And he told me that it's got real people and it's got cartoon people, and they sort of intermix. And he wanted me to draw the real people and get somebody else to draw the cartoon people. And I told him, it sounds like you want me to draw all the boring parts and you want somebody else to draw all the fun parts. And since then, we both had careers, and we keep in touch here and there, but we actually hadn't seen each other in person for probably that decade until we saw each other this last weekend here in Pittsburgh for Comics Pro. And yeah, we've both been, Tony's had his career and all the different books that he's been working on. I've had all the stuff I've been working on, between the Ninja Turtles and all the Marvel stuff and Godzilla stuff and stuff like that. So, and then he came to me again. It was like, remember that idea I told you about? How'd you like to draw the whole thing? I'm setting up with Boom Studios, and they want to do the book, and we'd all like you to do the art for the book because no one else was available. So
you sound like you're selling yourself a little short there. Like, I'm just the guy that he called because nobody else could make it.
Yeah. I think somebody else backed out. I don't know.
You know what I used to say when we were trying to find somebody to draw the book, like, because it took me a little while to just be like, I bet Dave could do this whole thing. But I used to think, because I've drawn like My Little Pony and Rick and Morty and cartoony stuff, but then I also draw Local Man, which is more realistic style. I would think, like, if I could find another me, like somebody that just do what I could do, they could draw it. But now, looking at the book, I'm like, well, thank goodness we found somebody better than me. Like, he can do all those things and do it better than I can do it. So it's we really landed on something here with this, Dave. We lucked into this. My 20-year plan of keeping this guy close has worked out.
Playing the long game.
Playing the long game. It's the only game in town.
Yeah.
So, Tony, what can you tell us about the story of Uncanny Valley?
Yeah, so like Dave said, it's something that I've been cooking up for a long time. It's a story about a kid named Oliver who feels sort of disconnected, and he's like 12 years old, so he's entering that time where things are starting to change, and things are changing with him. He's starting to develop these strange like powers or strange things keep happening to him, and they're almost like cartoonish. Like within the first couple pages of the book, you're like, this seems cartoony, but he's a real boy, and so through the course of the issue, we sort of meet him, we meet his mom, and we find out that like he feels like he doesn't fit in, and it's just him and her, and they're all they have, and he sort of like wants to know more about where he's from, and he doesn't understand why. Like why he doesn't feel connected to the place that he lives in. And then through the course of the first issue, we find out that it's because his grandfather's a cartoon character, and he comes from this like cartoon world, and we sort of introduce Oliver to this whole other world that he didn't know existed, and it sort of like explains all these strange things that are going on, but it sort of opens the door to obviously many, many more strange things that can happen. So it's like an adventure story. It's a coming of age story, but in the form of like a Roger Rabbit or like a Space Jam. Dave said it was like Percy Jackson, but with cartoons.
Okay, I can hang with that.
Yeah.
A lot of other people can too. Chad, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, you didn't. So you just looking at the first issue, I was just trying to figure out all the different like callbacks to different cartoons. There's the He-Man, there's the Family Guy. Is that something we can expect throughout the series?
Yeah, we're sort of playing with cartoon tropes, like obviously we didn't, Dave and I are just people. We don't have like a whole entertainment lawyer division where we could go and license, the real Looney Tunes and the real Disney characters and stuff like that. So Dave's creating sort of like off-brand Kmart. Kmart brand.
I think ours are the better ones.
Yeah, right. When it's affordable, it tastes better.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're definitely leaning into like the idea in the story that we get to is that the whole history of the world runs parallel with the history of this cartoon world. So we'll see cartoons from like every different era and cartoons from every different like different places. Like, if a cartoon is from Japan, they'll be more like anime. If they're from like Europe, they'll be more European vibe. So yeah, we're definitely playing with a lot of stuff. It's a real like sort of meta take on the like parallel universes and like a Roger Rabbit, but where we dive real deep into it, and where they're not actors, they're just people who exist in a world that runs alongside ours.
Okay.
So this has been published by Boom. On first issue comes out April 10th. Is this going to be a mini series or an ongoing?
It's solicited as a 6-issue thing, but we want to do more than 6. So we're hoping we can sell enough out the gate that we can do like a larger story.
Right. Because it would seem to me that you've got fertile ground here to go basically any direction you want with this.
Would seem that way to me as well, Matt.
Like 6 issues. Let's try for 60.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go on a roll.
So, Dave, how before you jumped into this project, how versed were you in drawing the cartoonier side of life, so to speak?
Not very.
Okay.
I was going to say, yeah.
I mean, let me clarify. I kind of see it as I've done similar things a little bit here and there, and I kind of see it as my role as a cartoonist is that I should be able to draw anything like that. Like as a comic book artist, like that's your job, to draw anything. And as a decent cartoonist, I should be able to switch up styles if I need to.
Sure.
If I could only draw in one style, I don't know. I don't know what I'd do. Like I think I honestly think sometimes with artists, the only reason you see them draw in one style is because their clients, are often, they see you draw like that, so they just want more of that from you, and they don't know that you can draw something else. I think the old adage is that's a great drawing of a duck, but can you draw a kitty cat? We don't know. So yeah, like I hadn't done a lot of it, but I've done little things here and there, and it doesn't, it doesn't take that much for me to. It is switching some gears, but it's still drawing and it's still comics, so it's still within the realm of what I should know how to do.
Right.
But it's
I was going to say,
yeah, but it gives me a chance to look up old cartoons and just see how things are done. And there is a matter of the way you do facial expressions and the way you do movement and things that can be very different. And there is a little bit of a learning curve, but I think I'm getting by okay.
You're doing all right.
Thanks.
Doing all right. Incorporating a lot of the cartoonier aspects into the so-called real world has to have been fun. Like I just couldn't help but laugh, or not laugh, but just grin ear to ear when Oliver is told by his mom to run. He looks down at his legs, and they're just a big old turbine going in a circle. We're not going to see that on the Punisher.
I mean, it is
inherently as an artist, you're limited only by your imagination, but you're also limited by the bounds of the story itself. So,
sure, yeah, and the rules.
How are you enjoying this level of freedom?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, everything is, yeah, like you say, anything. What you're bound by is the rules that you establish.
Right.
So you create the rules of the world, and then you have to follow those rules. So if you create the rules in a world where it's gritty and dark like the Punisher, and he just runs around shooting people, and that's one set of rules. And then if you've got cartoon people coming in and jumping around like rabbits and bouncing through walls and all that kind of stuff, it's still a set of rules that you will be following, but it's a whole, and with ours we've sort of got both, because we are doing both the real world where it has its rules, and we're doing the cartoon world where it's got those rules. And sort of the basic thing about this, one of the main things about this story is that it's those two worlds and those two set of rules colliding, and how they act with each other and against each other, and how the characters act when those things start colliding with each other.
so a question for both of you: is there a character that you, throughout the process, have grown attached to, or maybe didn't like? Not to say didn't like, but as you worked with them more, you became more wanting to develop them as a character.
I mean, I like writing the Oliver the kid. I feel like I really identify with him, and I can sort of like really get in there and like pull from my own like awkward youth and sort of, or my awkward adulthood and sort of and put stuff in there. But I also like really writing his grandpa too. I feel like there's a lot there. I just like the idea in everything of presenting something that looks silly and then putting as much depth in it as possible, and so I love the idea of having this character, like knowing what we have planned for him. I love the idea of having this guy that just looks like Yosemite Sam, and then fingers crossed, like if we do our job right, like maybe he could make you cry, like that's what we're aiming for. We're not going to kill him, obviously. That's just in case you think that I'm pulling up my old bag of tricks, and
that would have gotten really dark.
Pecos Pete's going to be skinned in a shed somewhere. But yeah, I like those two. I bet Dave likes
dogs, Tony.
I bet Dave likes drawing Oliver's mom, right?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Pros.
It's not a I haven't kept it a secret or anything like that, but I have modeled the mom character Margaret after my wife. So I've used her as a model. My wife is also a nurse by profession. There she is. So when Oliver's mom shows up in the first scene wearing her scrubs, standing there with her hands on her hips, that is Jenny. That is my wife doing that. But it also, is so I could have her. Hey, can you put your scrubs on and stand there like this for me? Because I just want to see what that looks like. Let me take some pictures. But yeah, that's and she's pretty happy to be like included in the book, which is cool.
Yeah, I imagine
Doesn't have
so.
anything against it.
Yeah,
So-
I like it too.
Chad, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I'm formulating.
Oh, you're formulating. Thanks a lot. So, what are your favorite cartoons? What did you grow up on, guys?
Oh man, I grew up on all of them.
Because there's
Yeah,
a boatload of Looney Tunes. Love.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all of it. Like I started,
He-Man.
when I was a kid, and I remember seeing all the Looney Tunes stuff. I loved. I really, and then there's also like there was a lot of the Hanna-Barbera. Scooby Doo was huge when I was a little kid. Flintstones, Wacky Racers, all that kind of stuff. And then of course I get a little older, and I'm a child of the '80s. So you have your Transformers, your GI Joe, your He-Man, all that kind of stuff. And then I remember like some early anime. My first thing was a little show called Star Blazers. I remember when I was a kid, and that was my first foray into what at the time we called Japanimation. And so I got into that stuff too, and that would lead me into things I would continue to watch into college and all that kind of stuff. And I loved animation. I used to go to they used to have these at the Repertoire Theater. They would have those animation.
Spike and Mike.
Yeah, like the Spike and Mike stuff and stuff like that, where it'd be animated shorts. That's where I saw the first Pixar short. When I was a kid, going to the movie theater. Going to the weird movie theater, and the one. And seeing those cool animation festival type movies. So I've always, I like all of just all the Christmas specials,
Rankin and Bass.
Oh, Rudolph
the
and
Rankin
those.
and Bass.
Yeah, Rankin and Bass.
The old Hobbit things. I mean, all of there's just there's so much. I mean, that's why there's so much for us to delve into, because there's so many awesome things that we could source from our own childhood.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's what's fun about the cartoon world that we're sort of playing with here, is that like all the cartoons that exist there. So Dave's not just drawing like Looney Tunes, he's getting to draw like 1970s action cartoons and anime robots and Disney princesses and like all this stuff that exists. He's getting to sort of like do our version of that. But yeah, I mean, I'm the same as Dave, except for I feel like I leaned a little more Disney movies, like theatrical, because I had 4 younger brothers and sisters. So I was 4 years older than all of them, but the whole time I was growing up until I graduated high school and moved out, they were sort of still going through their, they would hit like a Mary Poppins phase and they'd watch that forever. And then they'd hit like a Little Mermaid phase and they'd watch that forever. And so I would just be steeped in, we'd watch Lion King for like a year straight.
Yeah. I think everybody wound up watching Lion King for like a year straight.
I sort of had it in my head in those days that I wanted to be in animation. I went to school for animation for like a semester, and then I realized this is way more. It's like art plus math, and I did not like that. I was trying to get all the way out of there. But during that time, I was just steeped in it and feature animation. That's what I like. So I remember really being into all the 90s Disney stuff, and when DreamWorks started. I remember Prince of Egypt we're not going to have a Moses character in this, but Prince of Egypt was a huge deal for me. I remember being so into that movie, and Hunchback of Notre Dame and Pocahontas, all that stuff that all sort of came out around the same time as as
Yeah.
like all the comics that I loved that sort of like formed who I was going to be as a comic reader and a comic creator. Those were the cartoons that were coming around at that same time. So I was like really into Stray Bullets and Pocahontas at the same time.
Well, I mean, it's hard to argue that period in like the mid to late 90s, or really maybe all of the 90s, Disney wasn't just at the top of their animation game, right?
They were not messing around.
They were not. And I mean, yeah, okay, some of the movies weren't the best, but
Sure.
you can't say they didn't look fantastic.
Yeah. And it sort of raised the bar.
Remarkable considering they were putting out like a movie a year.
Yeah. Remember they used to always say like 7 years in the making. Like they were just making those forever.
I didn't grow up with a lot of good, in the 80s Disney wasn't doing a lot of good work. It was
I love the Black Cauldron though.
The Black Cauldron, yeah, but that was like it. Like that was it. And then maybe the Aristocats came along at some point. But like, how many like good Disney 80s animated movies are there? So like my childhood, it was just like, you had to go somewhere else. Disney was Disney was a bummer at the time.
Yeah, they got the Fox and the Hound in 1980.
Yeah,
and then they closed the decade in '89 with Little Mermaid.
Yeah,
everything in between. Yeah, absolutely.
Fox and the Hound, my first movie I ever saw in a theater.
It had to have been an early one for me because it came out the year I was born. But, no, I would have been too little. My mom wouldn't have bothered taking with.
That's just rude.
Yeah, you're just a baby, baby. So
I have one more question before Tony has to leave. What is the like working with Dave? Like I'm thinking about the one page where the boy is looking into his room. Do you just say like draw his room, or are you? I'm not really micromanaging, but how do you relay what you envision and want him to try to capture on the page?
I don't think I went too super detailed on what it was supposed to be in there. One of the things about having known Dave for so long and worked with him, like we did 2 other projects together that nobody will ever see. They're just like very small projects that nobody knows about. But from having done those, I just know like, and from following his work, like when he draws stuff, I'll buy it. I got the Guns of Shadow Valley Kickstarter, and I got the Golem and the Night of a Thousand Wolves. Whenever he does creator-owned stuff, I check in for sure. But I also grab, X-Men, and I was reading Punisher when he was drawing that just now. But I know he can handle himself, so I just write like, he may tell you differently, but I'm pretty sure if I think back on that, it was just like, this is a kid's room. It should have a couple of these type of things. But, I also know that he raised kids. So like he knows what a kid's room looked like. And he was a kid. So like part of it's nostalgia. Part of it's just like, just throw this in here. So I could be accused of being a micromanager on most fucking comics that I make. But I think on this one, for the most part, Dave's mileage may vary, but I feel like I'm definitely holding back because Dave's, just doing it. So I don't have to worry about it. So
yeah, I mean, I remember that specific scene. You were just like, it's a kid's room. It's got stuff that a kid's interested in. He's probably got stuff up. He's got toys around. He's got posters of like cartoons, but he's also probably got some sort of sports stuff also and things like that. So I was just like, yeah, it's a messy kid's room. I've seen those recently. That was actually one of the most fun, also challenging panels to draw because it's most of the page, and then it was just a matter of like thinking of different things that could go in the room, and then, of course, thinking of our versions of them, because it has to be one step to the side. It can't be anything specific, but everything can be sort of look like a callback to something that we all find familiar. So I was just like, man, what are all these different kinds of toys? And then like, what just kind of like, how can I just make it look cluttered as possible? Because a 12-year-old boy, just the room is a mess. It'll be a mess. So I just tried to make it kind of a mess. I mean, they're supposed to have not lived in the house that long, so I tried not to make it too ridiculous, but I tried to make it a little messy.
You did a good job on that splash. It you can almost smell it. It smells like feet and corn chips. Whatever.
It smells like 12-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for the size of the panel, there's a lot of detail there.
Yeah.
What you're trying to convey.
And then I even have him when he's sitting on the bed and he's watching television. I got him wearing 2 different socks because my stepson, he didn't care at all. He never wore the matching socks. And imagine doing that laundry and being like trying to match those socks up and then realize this doesn't matter. He's not going to wear them as sets.
Socks just stay in the basket.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no need to wad those up together.
Now, are the crows from? Are those the crows from Dumbo, or supposed to be?
Those are the crows from Uncanny Valley.
Oh yes, well.
No, there's a real continuity, I think, in a lot of cartoons of these crows who, like, Dumbo had crows, Secret of Nim had crows, but then also there's like the magpies, Heckle and Jekyll. There's just sort of like this long history of crows in cartoons, and so when we to enter the story, I knew we wanted to have something that felt like it could be from our world at first, and then we realized that it's a cartoon. And so I wanted it to start with crows. Like, there's a crow in the very first panel, and we don't know if that's a real crow or if that's a cartoon crow. And they sort of, like, Dave draws them more and more cartoony as we get into it.
So Dave, was that a deliberate choice on the front side, or something that just kind of occurred to you as you went along? Or, I mean, Tony, was it even in the script like that?
I said in the script.
Oh, well, never mind.
That's a good question. Everything's planned. Everything's deliberate. Everything's deliberate and planned. We both know what we're doing.
So after all these years, I'm gonna throw this. I know, Tony, you're fixing to have to go. So I'll throw this last question to you before you.
Oh yeah.
Before you're out. But after all these years of knowing each other, and realizing this project and getting to work together, and I mean, on a grander scale than your 2 mini projects in the past, like, how good does it feel?
I mean, to me, it feels great. It's nice when you can sort of land on something with a friend to do together, and it sort of is equal to how you feel about them, right? Like, this is a story that is very close to me, that I've been working on for a long time, and it's important to me and it's special. And also Dave is close to me and important and special, right? So it's nice that like I got as good as I got to write this book now. Like, if I'd written it 10 years ago, I would have been okay. But like, I feel like I'm a much better writer now than I was back then. And Dave, I always thought Dave was like a great artist, but he's on another level with this thing. Like, this book looks better than any other book he's ever done, I think. I mean, I'm biased, but just that he gets to color himself, that we're letting it breathe, that we're not trying to cram everything into a certain amount of issues. Like, we're just letting it happen. And so Dave can really sort of stretch out and make every panel beautiful. And that's what he's doing. So I feel like that's the answer to your question. It feels good.
I love to hear it.
I'll echo that sentiment too. It's really nice to see also, like, when you have a friend who that you've known for so long, that you started your career at the same time with, and be able to see them become successful at it, because you both know how hard it is. We've both seen so many people that we started off at the same time, and they're not doing this now. And so it's so nice to see, like, your friend become successful, and then when you look at their work, it's so nice to be able to tell them, like, not, like, some friends have work and you look at it and you're like, good job, like, congratulations on finishing something. It looks like you had a lot of fun doing it. But other friends, like Tony, you can look at it and you can go, listen, your work is really great, and it blows me away. And that's the way I feel about Tony. And so, like again, for me too, it feels great.
That's awesome. Well, Tony, I know you got to go, so I'm going to go ahead and say thank you for stopping in.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Of course, pre-order Feral. Pre-orders are due on Monday. I know I don't like to cheat on Dave and bring up these other things, but Feral, Open Man, Bad Girls, both due on Monday. If you're thinking about reading some of my work, I would suggest those as well. But Uncanny Valley, most importantly.
Most important, and it's on sale on April 10th. Make sure you get those pre-orders in if they're not already.
Thank you guys for having me. Let's not let it be 2 years before I come back.
For sure, man. We'll make it happen, Captain.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. Dave, we'll see you soon.
Yeah, see you, Tom.
And then there were three.
I thought he would never leave. Oh, what a relief. Now
That
I can
guy,
tell you
he
what
can
I
just
really
talk
think of
and
that
talk
guy.
and
Oh,
now we're going to talk about the Punisher.
he's the
Well,
worst.
I have a couple more questions about the art on Uncanny Valley.
You know, that's actually going to be a good segue for the end of the interview, because we kind of stumbled ass backwards into having Papose on the show next week, at which time we'll talk about Punisher. So look at that.
That's how most people interact with Papose, is stumbling ass backwards into him. So
this is going to be like his fourth time on the show, so we must be doing something right.
Well, he's always got something to say.
I mean, I can't go wrong with that. So, Chadley, you said you had more.
Yeah. Yes. Well, a couple questions. How long did it take you to do, a page? I know, and I know you work digitally, so how does, how, depending on, probably panels and what you're trying to do, about how long on average does it take you?
I would say first issues are always a little tricky with any series, because you're sort of feeling it out, especially with something like this where I'm switching up the style that I usually use and all of that. So this first issue took me a little longer than it should have, but also it's a little longer than an average issue. So let me preface it with that. And yeah, there's always a learning curve whenever you start a new story. You're working on new characters and you're working on new designs, and so it takes a little longer to sort of figure out what things are going to look like and feel like and all of that. That being said, what I'm supposed to be doing is like page a day, roughly. I mean, maybe, yeah. I mean, 3/4 to a page a day. I mean, it's basically the same amount of time that I would get to draw anything else. I'm just the method I'm using is I'm not really doing like these finished inks on most of it. I'm doing like finished line work on the the cartoon parts, but even then it's super simple because it's supposed to look like cartoons. But all the human real world stuff, it's basically designed to look more like pencil line. So it's a little rougher, and the draftsmanship, because I'm doing so much in the colors that I don't need to come in and do the inks again over the pencils. So it's sort of replaced doing inks with doing the colors. So it's supposed to take me the same amount of time as it would an issue of The Punisher or something, which I'm not coloring. So I'm trying to spend about the same amount of time to have a completely finished colored page as I would to have a completely finished inked page normally. And so far, so good-ish. I mean, I'm doing my best. There's other, speaking of like how much time things take and all that, when you're working on a creator-owned book, there's other things you got to do. You don't have the luxury of just working on it and then that's it. You have to, it's I feel anyway, it's also my job to like get the word out about this and find different ways to promote it. Find different ways to engage with people to encourage them to see it, and you know, I feel I'm part of the marketing team. Boom's got a nice marketing team. There's like a bunch of them. You know, when we did a meeting with Boom, and it's just like, we're going to sit down and talk about the marketing, and we did a meeting like this, you know, it was like a Zoom thing or whatever, and there was like so many little screens of so many heads of each person that does a different thing, and they each told us what they're doing and what their plans are, and we were like, wow, they got a machine here that's it's nice to have behind you. But it's the kind of thing you're not aware of when you're working for Marvel or IDW or something. There's people doing all that stuff, but you're not interacting with them at all. And now it's my job, because I own part of it. It's, you know, I'm more invested in it, in the success of it. That I have to do some of that stuff so that means, yeah, doing podcasts where, you know, because I've not done many podcasts in the past 10 years. You know, because I was like, Marvel can promote themselves. They're good at promoting themselves. You know, like Ninja Turtles, people know it. You know, they don't need me to come on and convince you of what a Ninja Turtle is. But with this, you know, we need to tell people what it is, because it's new. You know, and it's ours. So like, I want, you know, I got to get it out there. So that's part of that's now part of the process. I know your question was, how long does it take to draw a page? But that's how I answered it. So there you go.
That's fine, because I know from owning a couple pieces of your work, that you know, you really put a lot of time and effort into, you know, stuff, especially like your you know, the commissions and stuff. So I was just kind of curious how, you know, how long it took, you know, when you were working on the book.
Yeah. I mean, it's roughly the same schedule I'd work for anything, which is, you know, I say a page a day, but really it would be like 4 pages a week is how it would come out. So that's not quite a page a day, but you know, typically with a book, if like a Marvel book would be 20 pages, I would get 5 weeks. So divide it up, 4 pages a week, you know.
How much lead time do you get working with Boom? Like from the word go to publication of issue 1? I mean, or I get, well, not publication, but production is what I meant to say.
Honestly, it's the same. It's this is the way that it's the same with every publisher. Can you start last week? Is basically how it starts. I mean, that's, you know, and I'll be working on another project. I was working on the Punisher, and I was trying to work on this at the same time. I'm doing character designs and stuff like that, because we have to design characters and stuff like that from scratch. And I'm working on that stuff. I'm working on the first cover and stuff while I'm still doing the Punisher. So that's kind of how it is, you know. I mean, issue 1's done. I'm on to issue 2. I'll be, by the time issue 1 comes out, I'll be somewhere. I can't remember the exact schedule, but I should be maybe close to finished with issue 3. I can't even think about. I can't think of calendars right. But that's usually how it is. Usually by the time an issue 1 of something comes out, I'm on issue 3. It's somewhere in the point whether I'm starting issue 3 or I think maybe mid or you know, close to the end of issue 3 by the time a number 1 hits the shelves. Which is pretty typical across the board for any publisher. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
But it's always they always want you to start, have already started. By the time when they come and talk to you, would you like to work on this? They hope that you're already a week in.
You're already
Had 5 pages done.
Yeah. It's just the way it's a fast turnaround industry, you know.
Right.
I mean, it's not like television or movies where stuff just takes months and months and months and months and months. I mean, it's once you're going, and it turns around fast. Yeah.
How do you feel you've grown as a artist from, the webcomic at the Guns of Shadow Valley through Breath of Bones and, Night of a Thousand Wolves to now?
I think I'm better at it. I think uh, I'm faster at it. Believe it or not, I've had to be. I think, yeah, I look at a lot. I still look at some of that early work. I look at Guns of Shadow Valley, and I look at it and I go, yeah, that's that. I think it holds up. It looks pretty good to me. Like I'm proud of the work I did on that. It's fun. It's funny because it took 6 years roughly for that to get finished. So I can see the difference in page 1 as opposed to page 100 as opposed to page 200. I can see a strong. I'm like, oh, the anatomy at the beginning, or whatever. But luckily, I'm always able to look back and think, okay, like I accept where I was at that point. I'm proud of the work I've done. I know I can do better now, and I think the moment that I look back on the old stuff and I go, oh, I wish I could still draw like that. Like that would be troubling. I hope I always want to be getting better. And I think I am. So I've been at it for almost 20 years, and yeah, I feel like I'm confident.
If you haven't gotten better in 20 years, you've got to accept that maybe isn't your calling.
Yeah. Well, there's plenty of people who get good, and then they stay good.
Yeah. Absent
for
those people, I should say.
Yeah, I mean it can work for you. I'm not satisfied with that. I'm just the kind of person where I feel like I need to learn with everything I do, and I want to do better next time. And I'm a perfectionist, so I'm always, if I have the time, I'll spend it, trying to perfect the craft. Yeah, so I don't know. I hope that answers your question.
Chad,
Yes.
does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Good. So Dave, I guess let's go ahead and pivot towards Punisher and some of your other Marvel work. Like, how's that experience been working for one of the big two versus something a little more intimate at Boom?
Yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed working with Marvel a lot. It's been great.
It took them long enough.
Yeah. It did. I mean, yeah. I mean, out of a 20-year career, the Marvel stuff's only the past like 3 years.
Right.
A little, yeah, something like that. 3.5 years or something. I'm not even sure. Yeah, it's never because it was never something that I was necessarily aiming for. When I got in this to draw comics, that was the aim was to make comics.
Right.
And create our own books, and I like that. And then I started working on some properties, doing Godzilla, doing Ninja Turtles for a long time, and it got to the point. I mean, basically what happened is I was going to C2E2 one year, and my wife says, "Hey, look at this." She's on the website, and she goes, "Hey, look at this. Marvel's doing portfolio reviews. You should do that." I'm like, I don't know if I want to. I don't need to do that. She goes so she says, "It's next week. Put together your portfolio. You're gonna do a portfolio thing.
Do it.
Like why not? And I was like, fine. Why not? What could it hurt? And I did the portfolio review, and the guy who was the talent coordinator over there, Ricky, he said, "Oh, I'm so glad you came up because I've really been enjoying your stuff on Ninja Turtles, and I've been wanting to talk to you." So I was like, that's nice that like he already knows my work. And so he looked at my portfolio, but basically at that point it was like, what kind of work you want to work on? When are you available? And it still took another year before something actually happened, but I kept sending him work and stuff like that. But I was never the guy who had my portfolio at the convention under my arm, waiting in line. at the portfolio review, like I made
You were too
books.
busy drawing.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I was drawing. I was making my own books, and I got a table, and I wanted to draw. I do commissions for people and sell the books, because it was never about getting a job drawing this character or getting a job with this publisher or like I didn't have that kind of goal. My goal was I want to make comics. I just want to make them. And whatever it takes to do that. That being said, I've really enjoyed having different eras of my career and aspects of my career, going from creator-owned stuff and then pivoting over to licensed properties. I really enjoyed working on Godzilla's a hell of fun. Ninja Turtles was
Sure.
great. And all my Marvel stuff. My first Marvel gig was working with Larry Hama on Iron Fist. I mean, I was like it's like stop everything, I mean,
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, I talked about I was a kid of the '80s, G.I. Joe, right? I mean,
Yeah.
or Wolverine comics in the '90s with him and Silvestri. I mean, like this guy, and I get to draw Iron Fist, which I always like. I like Iron Fist, like that's a cool character, right? So I was just like that's my first gig out of the gate. Like I was like, and the stuff he had me draw, like here's zombie ninjas, and here's we need you to design like 7 different types of dragons. It's like, oh, okay, I guess, like, oh, tough job.
How do you say no to Harry Hama? He's like one of the nicest people you could ever meet.
He is like, and yeah, and he's great to work with, and he liked what I was doing, and he, like he liked what I was doing enough that he would just keep throwing stuff in, and he told me like, he's like, I know you can handle it, so I'm just going to throw in whatever I can into this for you to draw. And I was just like, that's awesome, so like to answer that question, like look, any way that I'm drawing comics is awesome.
Sure.
For me, like I'm so happy that I'm working in this career. But yeah, working for Marvel, it is a different beast. There's different things you have to accept that come along with it, positive and negative. You get to work you get to play. It's sort of like you're playing with somebody else's toys. It's like, oh, I could never. You that neighbor kid who always had the big toy that you never got. Your parents wouldn't buy you, so you get to play with that some. That being said, you have to be a little more careful with it because it's not yours, and then you have to give it back when you're done.
The G.I. Joe aircraft carrier. I know exactly where this metaphor needs to go.
Had it.
You had that?
Have it. Still.
Chad was a rich kid. Okay. So,
No, I had 2 brothers, so.
Oh, okay. But so there are like take like creatively, for example, Tony had mentioned that I'm coloring my own work with this new book, Uncanny Valley. Well, in Marvel and Ninja Turtles and stuff, I'm not coloring my own work. There's a certain amount of like giving up power over it. There is a certain acceptance you have to have that you are part of a cooperative, and the script comes to me, and I do my part, and then I send it to somebody else, and now it's out of my hands.
Sure.
And I don't really have anything to say about it after that. It's not up to me. It's not my decisions. I'm not the editor, the writer. I'm not the colorist. So I have to basically, and coming up doing creator-owned stuff, I had to learn to let go of that. I had to let go of, oh, this isn't right and that isn't right. And not to say that every once in a while something would come back and I would just be like, oh man, I don't know, there's always still a feeling of you put everything into it, and if it comes back looking different than you envisioned it. But that's something I would like to say that I have come to accept that. I would like to say that. Because I'm a very calm and reasonable person. And I don't get emotional about these things at all. Hey, my wife has just heard that and just went, You know,
she knows your secrets.
she's she's heard me she's heard me bitch about stuff.
Well,
But yeah,
Was
so
was part of that being having to draw blade, but not being able to get him using or draw him using his sword?
look, it was I had a wonderful time drawing a blade book where he kills no one on panel. He doesn't, you know. It was a cool story. It was a cool story. And people liked it and stuff like that. But I was like, man, I want him to take that sword out and cut somebody in half like that. I want to draw that. But that wasn't in the story. So you know, but luckily,
Blame Mark.
yeah, it was.
I really like that Blade comic,
But it was one issue, so it's not like I had to do 12 issues of people having conversations. You know?
Right.
There's always going to be an issue.
There are worse fates, right?
Yeah. There's always going to be an issue that you draw that where you know, you know, honestly, most comic book artists don't dream about office scenes. They don't dream about conference tables, you know, and you know, like having a bunch of people sitting around a table talking, which I've done. Not in that book, in other books, but there's office. Every time it goes into an office scene, I'm just like, all right, here we go. It's an office scene.
Yeah.
And people don't. That's not the kind of thing that you dream of, you know. But like I said before, as a cartoonist, it's my job to draw everything. You know,
Right.
I got to draw cars. I got to draw buildings. I got to draw animals, and I got to draw, and you know, all with varying degrees of success. But I'm supposed to be able to draw them fairly decently.
And then sometimes you get to redesign the Punisher.
Yeah, that's true.
So, what on earth was that experience like? It's like a pretty iconic character, and hey,
yeah, relatively painless.
Okay.
Actually, went a lot smoother than I thought it would be.
Oh, really?
You know, Tom Brevoort, who was like the head editor on that book, he told me like this may take a while. A lot of people got to look at it. There's got to be a lot of approval. You know, with something like that, you know, it's like a big deal. So you figure there's going to be a lot of people who need to say yes or no on something. But they kind of gave me a rough idea of what they were looking for in the character's background and stuff like that. And I just came up with some designs and showed them to Tom. And he was like, well, I think this one's good and this one's good. You know, we got like, I think I had 5 or 6 designs and he's like, these 2 are good. Let's show these 2 around. I think maybe I refined him a little bit, and then they showed him around, and he's like, "This may take a little while. We've got A and we've got B." And he comes back. You know, I get an email. I don't know. It's probably an hour later. He's like, "Yeah, we're going with B," or maybe it was A. I don't remember, but it's like, "Yeah, we got it. We did it. It's done. Everybody likes it. It's good." You know. So I was like, "All right, that's pretty awesome." So that's designed. You know, I had some different versions. I had them with a beard. You know, they were like no beard, and I was like, okay, you know, fine. People don't like. I like beards. I think beards are cool. I mean, I wasn't going to give them this, but it was more like Captain America's in the Infinity Wars beard, you know, something like that. But yeah, but the process was it wasn't nearly as daunting as it could have been.
Right.
And people were a lot more accepting. I think everybody was like ready to go, you know. And it wasn't, you know, you imagine, again, I mentioned boardroom. You imagine like a corporate boardroom where everybody's sitting around, but like it really doesn't exist, you know. I think Am I still there?
Yes, you're back.
That
That was crazy.
Started talking about them, and they got to us. But you know, it was you know, there's always going to be detractors. There was people who were never happy with the idea in the first place. Well, you know, we knew that was going to happen, but we felt like we got a kind of a cool story going on. We got a good writer, got some guy to draw it, and
I hope you guys get to draw more of Joe Garrison.
well, we'll see. I mean, I'm busy for a little while, but,
Sure.
You know, we'll see what happens. Yeah, I mean, this first one, I saw, you know, at one point I saw people talking online, and they're like, it's going to be canceled after 6 issues, and I was like, oh, that's funny because it's only going to be 4. You know, like we were only planning for 4, guys. We're not planning for 6, so I guess you'll have a good laugh when it gets canceled at 4. But you know, which is pretty. I think it's pretty common. Marvel does, you know, they like to do a mini series, which even goes back in the days. I think the original Punisher was a mini series. I remember like Wolverine first series was a mini series, you know. So that's a tradition that goes way back when you start a new thing to start it with a mini series, and everything seems to be a mini series these days. So who knows? But I don't listen to the detractors very much. You know, the people who are going to be mad are going to be mad no matter what. I feel like some of the comments I saw though, you know, I remember when the designs first came out, it would be like, you know, there's no Punisher that's not Frank Castle, and this is stupid, and this is just, you know, this is Disney stinks, blah 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 blah, and then they go, but you know, the design's not bad. I like design. Yeah, it looks cool. You know, it's like good because that's the only part that was my job. You know, all the other decisions are not in my pay grade. But you know, making the design, that was me. And no matter, like, there was a lot of very angry people who would then go, yeah, but I like the design. It looks pretty cool. You know. So I like that. Did we lose Chad? Did he turn the
I'm
lights
still
on?
here.
Oh,
Is
yeah,
he in
your
the dark?
video's frozen. Chad. Oh, we did lose Chad. Maybe he'll come back. So,
Got rid of
Uncanny
him.
Valley. What else? What, I guess last question is, what else do you have coming up besides Uncanny Valley? Which
That's
is
it.
awesome, and everyone should buy it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only like book I'm working on. You know, I'm not like Tony. I can't work on 4 books at once. You know, because
Right.
I'm not a writer, or I'm not doing writing anyway. Other than that, I've been doing cover work in between.
Okay.
So I'm working on a couple of Marvel. Like, I've been doing a lot of variant covers for Marvel. So I've got a couple of variant covers in the pipeline.
Chad. Oh. At first I thought Dave was being funny, but we've lost his sound now.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave, we've lost your sound. First I thought he was doing a bit. Okay. So, all right. Well, we're at our hour, and I guess we're going to close out on technical difficulties. Chad, holler at your boy.
I will.
Okay. He's freaking out over there. We've lost him. But that's it for us this week. We want to thank Tony Fleecs and Dave Wachter for stopping by. And next week, as we alluded to, we have David Pepose coming back on. And it's going to be a good time. So until then, get out there, be a good human being, support local comics, and just get out there and kick all the right asses in all the right ways. Thank you so very much for listening, and we will see you next time on the Comic Watcher Show.